Hey guys, this is a quick update video on three things. We're going to update you on the police bike. Pretty sure I know what's causing the engine problems. Then I'm going to update you on something we're going to be filming here shortly on the VFR. And finally, we'll update you on the Z1-R. The Z1-R is getting real close. I'll go into that in a little bit more detail a little bit later along with the VFR. Let's go ahead and start with the police bike. I'm going to go inside on the computer and show you some photos from a new camera I got, which is a borescope camera that's got two views, two axes, so I can look out the side of the camera. And I want to show you what I found. Got me a new camera, the Test Long, two view, two axis camera, so you can look out the side of the camera as well as straight in, the dangly bit. You know, they should call it the Test Schlong, you know, just put an H in there, you know, because it's got the dangly bit, you know, swing. Anyway, yeah, this worked pretty well. So like I said, we're going to go inside first, and I'll cover that, kind of narrate the pictures to, there are not that many, to show you what's going on. I'm pretty sure we nailed down the cause or the problems with that. These following pictures are from number 1 cylinder. I only looked at number 1 and number 4 because they're easier to get at. So with that side camera, you can see in this picture we have the number 1 intake valve. Now as you can see, that valve looks really chewy. I can't get the camera to go and focus between the spark plug hole and the intake valve to see if there's any cracks. Unfortunately, it just won't focus there. You can see the edge there when I zoom up on that same valve, and I tell you what, they are full of carbon. The edges are rough. When I show you number 4, you're really going to be surprised with that one. But you can see all the carbon in there, and it's definitely real oily. So, you know, you can tell right off the bat that this thing's just got a, you know, it's pretty much a trashed top end. Here's a better shot of more of the valve, and like I said, look at all the carbon, and it's just really bad. So I can't see these valves are really seating all that well, and I'll go into why I think the compression is showing higher than it normally would be under these conditions, and I'm going to call it artificially high, the XS11 syndrome, here in a minute. This is looking straight down with the straight part of the camera at the top of number 1 piston. You can see all the oil in there. I'm not quite sure what that circular area is in the center. It's definitely not where the valve may have been hitting, because that's way over on the side where the relief is cut or made into the valve itself for that. So that's not that. Here's another better shot of it here, a little bit better at least. Like I said, I can't figure that out. I'm not sure what that is, but maybe just part of the way the head, top of the piston is. I don't know. This is number 1 exhaust valve. And you can see right there you have kind of a dark area around the edge of it, and what that is oil that's coming down from the valve stem seal, most likely from that number 1 exhaust valve. So that gives you an idea right there that the valve certainly isn't seating all the way. Otherwise, even if it was doing that, it would stay above that valve when it's in a closed position like this. So yeah, there are definitely some big time valve problems in this engine, which we're going to see right now with number 4. This is the face of number 4 valve, kind of a close-up shot, and you can see all the buildup of carbon on that one as well, but it does get worse. Number 4 exhaust. Take a look at the margin of the valve right there. It's all chewed up, and it doesn't get any better no matter how you look at it. I mean, that valve is in really, really bad shape. So you can tell right there again that the top end of this engine is just completely shot, in particular the valves. So what does this all mean really? Now, the pictures are definitely worth 1,000 words on taking a look at the side view of those valves. We'll get to back to the valves here in a second. Let's talk about the cylinders. The compression readings we had on this engine are pretty good, as you probably saw from the other videos. I think those readings are skewed, and I think it's like what I mentioned earlier about the XS11 syndrome. On the XS11, when I first tested it, number 4 cylinder had over a 200 psi compression reading because it was so heavily laden with oil. Now I can see it in number 1, and I think number 3 with the borescope on this engine. I still think there's problems in the oil control rings on all 4 cylinders, which are probably leading to slightly higher compression readings in the manner that you normally take compression readings, which is without any carbs installed, or if you have carbs installed with the throttle wide open so there's no restriction. That's going to play a role here in a second. So that's what I think is going on with the compression readings. Maybe not significantly, but you know, the earlier compression readings I got were lower, but once the engine ran for a while, then they went up substantially. So the cylinders may have been drier at that point, and that kind of lends toward that theory. So let's talk about the valves. Now that we saw the side view of the valves and we see how crusty they are, why are we not having a really crappy compression reading based on the valves alone? And I think that's because of two things. Number one, when it's under a compression cycle, it's actually helping to close those valves just a little bit more, even when you have a no combustion going on. And number two, there's no restriction on the intake pulse. So now that wouldn't necessarily affect the compression reading, but it would definitely affect the way it's running. And a viewer mentioned this, I forgot the viewer's name, about the difference between an air intake pulse on an engine on the intake stroke when it's, there's no restriction, or when the carbs are on and the butterflies are closed and it's got to pull air through the little spots, so the carb circuits itself, and through the little space between the butterflies and the bore of the carburetors themselves. When that happens, if you've got weak valves, weak compression as far as the piston rings go, it's going to have a hard time doing that. And we can see that again on the low readings of the carb tune and the other vacuum synchronizer. So the vacuum pulse is like really low. Yes, I agree that the throttle shafts could be part of the problem as well, but I can't see them letting that much air in on intake pulse to lower the amount to that, to any great substantiality by themselves. I think again it's a combination of things, and that may be playing a role on it as well. So in summary, again, I believe that certainly the top end needs to be rebuilt. There's no question about that, and we knew that. Okay, everybody knew that. I knew it, but the good compression readings kind of threw me. Lesson learned that you can't just go off one set of readings. You have to kind of look at the whole picture. And now I have that camera, you can look to the side and see those valves and how chunky they are. In particular, that number 4 exhaust, how the margin's all chewed up. Who knows what number 2 and 3 look like? I'm not even going to bother, because again, the top end needs to be rebuilt. So again, I believe it's essentially a multi-system issue that we're dealing with here, or multiple causes that's causing the top end or the engine to run that way. And the fix is just going to be a top end job. Now I wish I could do that for you, but at this point that's still not in the plans. Although I do still have the bike here, working on some stuff with the owner to get it back to the owner, or perhaps some other options which I just can't discuss on camera at this point. But that's where I believe we're at, or where the engine is at least, on the KZP. Kind of an interesting setup, interesting situation. If you have more than one thing that's just over the edge of minimum standards, if you will, and then you have a couple things building up, in aggregate, if you will, and that's the situation we have. So I might be wrong. Comment if you think that I am full of shit. That's fine, but I think that's a good theory, a hypothesis as to what's going on. Now, as far as the VFR goes, I was doing some jetting, playing with the jetting the other day, and so I had it up here in the lift, and I noticed as soon as I rolled it up on the lift, a drip of coolant come down from where the water pump is on the left lower side of the engine. And I figure maybe the drain, because that's where the drain for the cooling system is, right on the water pump. I figured that may be loose or something, which it wasn't, and it turns out I found that the weep hole on the water pump is actually doing its job and it's weeping. It's not doing it now, though. It's really weird. It only did it, this thing had been sitting for a while, and so I rolled it up on the lift and then it starts dripping, but it's definitely coming out the weep hole, definitely. But I don't know why, because now that I ran it for a while after changing some jetting around, it's not doing it. But there's obviously a problem in the seal part of sealing the coolant away from the shaft, the inside part of it. You said shaft. And of course, keeping it where it's supposed to be on the impeller side of that pump. So what I've done is I've ordered a kit, which is a rebuild kit for these. I've never done it before. We're going to go ahead and film that when it comes. It's supposed to be here today, but I kind of doubt I'm going to be able to get into that and start it today, because by the time UPS comes, it'll be this afternoon, and we'll start that another day. But I'm going to film that, all right? And you're going to see that on video, but that's where we're going with that. Now, as for the Z1-R, this is where we're at. As far as body work goes, Got everything except the fairing. And I'm waiting on the screws that go into the fairing. They're special plastic screws with like a almost like an inverted Torx, like an outside Torx that goes into the, what am I doing this for? That goes into the windshield, the fairing rather, to then you put the screws in to put the windshield in. It's not important, but I was able to get 4 when I ordered all the nuts and bolts and stuff for it, but I need 8. So I'm waiting on 4 more. And once I get those, I'll install the windshield, because you can't put the fairing on the front without the windshield, because this is in the way. Windshield's got to go in first, and then this goes in. Then it goes in here, rather. But I'm pretty sure I got all the right hardware for it, and what do you call it, the little rubber bushings and things. So I'm just waiting on that, and then we'll get that in. This thing just keeps giving me challenges and throwing me curveballs. I did do some rejetting on it. It's very close to where I think it needs to be, but I think I mentioned in another video, I'm not going to do a whole lot more, I don't think, because these carbs are probably going to go to some flat slides at some point. But these carbs are a mess anyway. All these screw holes, well, not all, about half of them. So there's 16 screws that hold the float bowl in for all 4 carbs, 4 times 4, last time I checked. And about half of them are stripped out. And what the engine builder, what the carb guy did was he puts 1032 Imperial screws in. And I've had to do a couple more. So every time you take the screws out, do some jetting, you eat away a little bit more of the threads, and they've probably been done a billion times since they were new. So, you know, the internals in this number 4 in particular, around the base of the where the emulsion tube goes in, that standoff, is all corroded anyway. They really need to be replaced. So I'm hoping he's going to do that at some point. But as far as the side badging goes, we're having a little hiccup with those, because the only ones I could get said Z1000 Z1-R, and he doesn't like that. So I think he said he found some of the ones that he wants, and he's going to have them sent to me, stick-on type. You can find the ones with the 2 pins, you know, with the clips on the back side, but I don't remember these having that. And since he sent these out to the painter, I don't know if the painter filled those holes, or I don't remember. But I never took those off, so, you know, this is what happens when other people do stuff and I don't know what they do. But obviously I'm not doing any painting, so. And, you know, it's okay. There's some not 100% on the paint, you know, the pinstripes in particular, but, you know, it's all right. And it runs all right. I'm going to try to run it for you, but the problem I have in one of the curve balls, there's 2, is it's not charging anymore, and I don't know why. I had it out yesterday, and all of a sudden the battery went dead. And I could have sworn that I tested this charging system when I first ran it way back, and I could have swore that it was charging, but I can't honestly remember, and I don't have any notes to that effect. So I have to diagnose that. I suspect it's the voltage regulator, which is behind here. This has got a separate regular rectifier. The regulator is over here. The rectifier is on the other side, just a little diode pack with a heat sink attached to it. So I did test really quick that the stator resistance is good. It does have AC output. I don't remember the exact voltage. I can test that again. But I threw the battery on charge a little while yesterday, and I can't really do too much more tuning with it until I know that it's charging, so we don't have an ignition system problem. So I'll put you in a stand. We'll try to fire it up and see. But you know, I don't know if it's going to crank too well because of that. It might. I don't know. But we'll try it. Again, that's no choke or nothing. Yeah, so she runs pretty good. I'm kind of happy with that. You know, it's got a nice sewing machine sound when she idles. And I got the, you know, I have this Pingle fuel cock, and you knew about that, but I redid the fuel delivery, which was actually pretty cool. You can't see it from here, but I'll interject a little video clip as I'm talking. I made this, this, you know, it's a 1:2 the way this works. Kind of see it in there. Now I wanted the straightest shot as possible from the fuel cock to that bifurcation where it feeds the two separate 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. If you have any significant rise, I know on these bikes you can get an air bubble and it'll actually block the fuel flow. So I made this part out of two brass, well, one's a T and then an elbow, and I turned down one end of it in the lathe and then made a press fit on the other side and did it in the mill with a drill and a reamer, and made about a 2-3 thou crush on it and put it together, and so we don't have any leaks in that. That worked out really well. So I took care of that. But yeah, it runs all right. I mean, I'm not unhappy with it, but you know, there's a couple other little things that just need to be taken care of, and it's getting, you know, I gotta get that off of there. Some goo. You know, it just needs to be done. Like, for example, the front brakes, these are really annoying. The calipers are different sizes as far as the pistons go. This one is a 38 millimeter, which I believe is standard, because in the parts fiche it does not show any difference in the calipers. Of course, there's different part number. I'm sorry, for the pistons. There's different part numbers for the calipers because they're mirror image to one another. But the other side's got a 43 millimeter piston in it. So I had to get a special kit just for that one, because I had to rebuild these because the brake guy he sent these out to, you know, didn't do anything basically, and they were leaking because the pistons were all pretty much porous, you know, had a bunch of pits in them. So the thing I have a problem with is I cannot get these bleeders to seal off. These are the originals. I couldn't even use the aftermarket ones from Brake Crafters because I think in the inside here where these seat, it's pitted. So I think these calipers are going to ultimately end up being replaced. And the paint I used on it, I kind of screwed up on that. I should have used a better paint because I had to repaint them, and the brake fluid is attacking them. So these are going to end up coming off again. I'm going to take them all apart again, probably strip them chemically again, and come up with something to fix this, or we're going to replace the calipers. I don't know yet, but it is kind of annoying. It works, of course, but you know, it stops pretty well. But yeah, so you know, this is just annoying. These annoying little things. The other curveball is in here. This has got a messed up clutch. This is almost impossible. It's very hard to ride, not impossible, very difficult to ride. You try to do the friction zone in the clutch, and it just goes, and then grabs and goes, and it's terrible. Now, remember, the engine builder likes to have Castrol GTX in here, and you know how I feel about that when you put car oil in a motorcycle. That's not JSO MA2 compatible or spec'd out for wet clutches. When I questioned the engine builder on that way back early on, he said he didn't even know what JSO was. So, okay. You know what? I don't believe in using car oil in motorcycles, so what I ended up doing was, yesterday I ended up changing oil on this, and I put the Rotella T4 in it. The Rotella T4 is also one of the oils that he approves of in his notes. He gives you like 5 or 6 page notes, which is all the different specs on the cam, you know, cam degreeing, I should say, not cam timing. But he puts in there, he prefers the GTX Castrol with that zinc additive, or the Rotella T4. And I use the Rotella T4, as you know, in everything. It's very good in flat tappet cam engines. And so that's what's in there now, and I know it's good on wet clutches. But no difference. It's just as bad. So I've ordered an EBC clutch kit, you know, for the friction material only. I don't have a new gasket. This leaks too. I don't know why. He put this on and it's got a little bit of a leak, so I needed to pull this off anyway. And I'm not even drain the oil when we do this. We're going to just set it over on the side stand up on the lift here, put a couple of safety straps on, and just pull the side cover off and do it like I've done it many other times on bikes dealing with clutch stuff. But anyway, we'll get to that another time. But other than that, it runs pretty good. I'm kind of happy with that part, and as you heard. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else to update Jan on this. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to be doing as far as when all the body work is on and it's you know, it's essentially ready to ride. Obviously, we haven't done anything downstairs here, so I'm going to tell you what we're going to do with that. Apparently, he wants to go with different rims that he already has. I haven't seen them yet. It's a wider rim in the back, and I think slightly wider in the front. So at some point, we're going to have to pull the rear wheel off and try to fit that with a tire on it. I told him he needs to get tires on them, but he said, I don't know what size tires, so we're probably just going to do some measuring. Then he can order some tires, and we'll try that and then see what happens. All right, so you've been updated. I don't know what's wrong with the clutch. I should have mentioned that before. I haven't taken it apart yet, obviously. I suspect that the engine builder put the original clutch discs back in that were in it. And I don't think they're new discs. So I need to take it apart and look at the steels and measure each one up and look at the service data and see if there's any thicker steels in there, because that's how they adjust the clutch pack thickness, is with the steels usually. And so we'll see if there's any thicker ones in there, and we'll try to mimic that clutch pack as close as possible. So I'm getting the friction material from Parts Giant. They had the EBC. I like EBC or Barnett better than the original stuff. The Magna's got a Barnett set in it, and the Concourse, actually, I put an EBC clutch in. It works pretty good. I like that one as well. But this thing has zero friction zone. I mean, it just is, it's terrible, which is going to impact tuning as well, because when you get on it and start to come off the line, it grabs so hard that it almost wants to kill the bike, you know, because you're just slipping it out in first gear. So either that or the tire breaks loose. So it's pretty dangerous. So we're not going to be riding anymore until I fix that. But I bet you that's what happened. I bet you put the original friction discs back in, thinking that they were okay. Maybe they looked okay. I don't know. But the steels, who knows? Maybe they're all varnished up and they need to be cleaned or replaced. If I need to replace those, I'll get those right up the road in Tampa at Z1 Enterprises. And that's why I need to look at them first. But anyway, that's it. Enough rambling on this video. Next video will probably be fixing the water pump on the Magna, yeah, the VFR. Where am I at? And we'll do that. So hopefully you'll be able to stick around to see that, and that's what you need to do, is subscribe, ring the bell, and all that stuff, and that way you get notified when I put more crap like this up. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.